There are diamonds that are admired for their beauty. There are diamonds that are valued for their rarity. And then, there is one diamond that has inspired fear for more than 3 centuries. It has been blamed for ruined fortunes, broken dynasties, violent deaths, and a string of tragedies so unsettling that many came to believe it carried a curse. Its name is the Hope Diamond. Today, it rests safely behind glass at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., admired by millions of visitors every year. Its deep blue color catches the light with an almost otherworldly glow, making it one of the most recognizable gemstones ever discovered. But before it became a museum treasure, it was a mystery. Its story begins hundreds of years ago in the heart of India. Long before South Africa became famous for its diamond mines, India was the world's only known source of diamonds. For centuries, merchants, emperors, and travelers journeyed there, in search of gemstones unlike any found elsewhere on Earth. Among the most celebrated mining regions was Golconda, a kingdom whose rivers and mines produce some of history's most legendary diamonds. The Kohinoor, the Regent Diamond, and, according to most historians, the stone that would eventually become the Hope Diamond. No one knows exactly when the blue diamond was discovered. Unlike modern gemstones, which are carefully documented from the moment they are unearthed, precious stones in the 17th century often changed hands without detailed records. That uncertainty allowed mystery to flourish, and legends soon filled the gaps left behind by history. One of the most famous stories claims that the magnificent blue diamond once adorned the forehead of a sacred Hindu statue. According to the legend, the gemstone was stolen by a traveler, bringing a terrible curse upon everyone who dared to possess it. It is a captivating story, but there is no reliable historical evidence that it ever happened. Most historians believe the tale was invented centuries later, making an extraordinary gemstone seem even more mysterious. Yet legends have a remarkable way of surviving, especially when they are attached to something as rare as this. The Hope Diamond looked unlike any ordinary jewel. In its original form, the rough stone weighed more than 112 carats, making it one of the largest blue diamonds ever discovered. Its breathtaking color came from tiny traces of boron, trapped inside the crystal as it formed deep beneath the Earth's surface, more than 1 billion years ago. Even today, naturally occurring blue diamonds remain among the rarest gemstones on Earth. To those who first saw it, the diamond must have seemed almost supernatural. A gemstone so beautiful, so unusual, that it hardly looked real. Before long, word of the mysterious blue diamond spread far beyond India's borders. It caught the attention of explorers, merchants, and collectors across Europe, all eager to possess what many believed was the finest diamond in the world. Among them was a French traveler, with an eye for extraordinary treasures. His name was Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, and his decision to acquire the remarkable blue stone would begin one of the most fascinating journeys in the history of jewels. Before we step into today's story, I'd like to thank you for being here. And if you find yourself enjoying these quiet journeys through history, don't forget to subscribe. It helps us continue bringing forgotten stories back to life. Now let's begin. By the middle of the 17th century, stories of India's extraordinary diamonds had spread across Europe. Kings wanted them, queens admired them, and wealthy merchants crossed continents, hoping to find the next priceless treasure. Among the most determined of them all was a French gem merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. Unlike most jewel traders of his time, Tavernier was also an explorer. Over the course of 40 years, he traveled thousands of kilometers across Persia, India, and Southeast Asia, making 6 remarkable journeys in search of the world's finest gemstones. His adventures took him through dangerous deserts, crowded markets, royal palaces, and bustling ports, where fortunes could be made or lost in a single negotiation. Tavernier earned a reputation for honesty, patience, and an exceptional eye for rare jewels. It was a reputation that opened doors to the courts of emperors and kings. Sometime during his travels in India, he encountered an extraordinary blue diamond. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The rough stone weighed more than 112 carats, and possessed a deep blue color that seemed almost impossible for a diamond. Years later, Tavernier carefully sketched the gemstone in his travel journals, providing historians with one of the earliest known records of what would eventually become the Hope Diamond. Exactly how he acquired the stone remains uncertain. Some historians believe he purchased it from merchants operating near the Golconda mines. Others suggest it passed through the hands of local rulers before reaching him. The truth has been lost to history. That uncertainty only added to the growing legends surrounding the diamond. One story claimed that Tavernier stole the gem from a sacred temple, awakening a terrible curse. Another insisted that priests warned him never to take the stone from India. These stories became wildly popular centuries later. But there is no reliable evidence that either of them is true. In fact, the earliest accounts of Tavernier describe him as a respected merchant, not a thief. With the remarkable blue diamonds safely in his possession, Tavernier returned to France. There he presented his collection to King Louis XIV, the powerful ruler who would become known as the Sun King. The king was immediately captivated. He purchased the magnificent blue diamond, along with several other precious stones, adding them to the French crown jewels. For Tavernier, the sale was the achievement of a lifetime. For France, it marked the beginning of one of history's most famous royal treasures. And for the mysterious blue diamond, it was the beginning of a legend that would soon become darker than anyone could have imagined. Inside the glittering palace of Versailles, surrounded by unimaginable wealth and luxury, the diamond would find its most powerful owner yet. But it would also find the first shadows of the curse that would make it famous. When the magnificent blue diamond arrived in France, it entered one of the most extravagant royal courts the world had ever seen. Its new owner was King Louis XIV, the ruler who proudly declared, "I am the state." Known throughout Europe as the Sun King, Louis XIV believed that a king's power should be seen as much as it was felt. Everything around him reflected that belief. The towering palace of Versailles, the endless royal gardens, the lavish banquets, the glittering ceremonies. Nothing was considered too magnificent for the King of France. And among all the treasures in his collection, the extraordinary blue diamond quickly became one of his favorites. Wanting to reveal its true beauty, Louis ordered the rough gemstone to be recut by the royal jeweler. The process took nearly 2 years. It was an enormous risk. One mistake could have shattered one of the rarest diamonds on earth. But when the work was finally complete, the transformation was breathtaking. The original 112-carat stone had become a perfectly cut diamond weighing just under 69 carats. Its deep blue color appeared even richer, and its brilliance surpassed anything seen before. The gemstone became known as the French blue. Unlike ordinary jewelry, it was not worn every day. It appeared only during important royal ceremonies, where candlelight danced across its polished surface, creating a glow that left visitors speechless. The French blue became more than a royal jewel. It became a symbol of absolute monarchy, a reminder that the wealth of France rested in the hands of its king. After Louis XIV's death, the diamond passed to his successors. Eventually, it came into the possession of King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. By then, however, France was changing. Beyond the gilded halls of Versailles, ordinary people faced rising food prices, heavy taxes, and repeated harvest failures. While the royal court celebrated lavish balls and extravagant celebrations, millions of citizens struggled simply to survive. The contrast grew impossible to ignore. Anger spread across the country. The dazzling French blue, once admired as a symbol of royal greatness, slowly became a symbol of everything many people believed was wrong with the monarchy. Then in 1789 the French Revolution erupted. Crowds filled the streets of Paris. The monarchy began to collapse. And the fate of both the royal family and the magnificent blue diamond would change forever. Within just a few years, King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette would lose not only their crowns, but their lives. And amid the chaos of revolution, one of the greatest jewels in history would disappear without a trace. When the doors of the royal treasury were finally forced open, the French blue was gone. For centuries, people remembered the French Revolution for its violence, the storming of the Bastille, the fall of the monarchy, and the execution of a king and queen. But hidden beneath the chaos of history, another mystery was unfolding, one that would puzzle investigators for generations. In September 1792, revolutionary crowds broke into the Garde Meuble, the building that housed the French crown jewels. For nearly a week, thieves moved in and out almost unchecked, carrying away one priceless treasure after another. Gold disappeared. Precious gemstones vanished. Centuries of royal wealth simply melted into the streets of Paris. Among the stolen treasures was the magnificent French blue. When officials finally regained control of the building, the diamond had vanished. No witnesses could explain where it had gone. No records revealed who had taken it. It was as if one of the world's most famous gemstones had simply disappeared. The French government launched investigations. Rewards were offered. Suspects were questioned. But the trail ended almost as quickly as it began. The French blue had become one of history's greatest unsolved thefts. Years passed. Then decades. Eventually, many people believed the diamond had been broken apart forever. It was a common practice among jewel thieves. Large, famous gemstones were almost impossible to sell. Everyone recognized them. But if a diamond was carefully recut into smaller stones, its identity could disappear forever. Many historians believe exactly that happened to the French blue. Somewhere, hidden from the authorities, an expert diamond cutter may have transformed the famous royal jewel into a slightly smaller stone. A new shape. A new identity. A new beginning. If that theory was true, the legendary French blue no longer existed. It had been reborn. Then something remarkable happened. Almost exactly 20 years after the theft, a mysterious deep blue diamond appeared in London. Its weight was around 45 carats, significantly smaller than the original French blue. Its shape was different. Its proportions had changed. At first glance, it seemed to be an entirely different gemstone. But modern scientists would eventually compare detailed measurements, historical drawings made by Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, and surviving records of the French blue. Their conclusion was extraordinary. The mysterious London diamond matched almost perfectly with what remained after the French blue could have been recut. It appeared that history's greatest missing diamond had never truly disappeared. It had simply been hiding in plain sight. But one question still remained. Who possessed this remarkable stone? And how had it survived 20 years without anyone realizing its true identity? The answers would lead to a wealthy London banker, whose family name would become forever linked with the world's most famous diamond. From that moment on, the French blue would no longer be known by its royal name. The world would remember it by another, the Hope diamond. In the early 19th century, the mysterious blue diamond found a new owner, a wealthy London banker and passionate gem collector named Henry Philip Hope. Around 1839, the remarkable stone appeared in a catalogue of Hope's famous collection of precious gems. From that moment onward, the diamond became known by the name it still carries today, the Hope diamond. There was nothing unusual about its ownership. Henry Philip Hope enjoyed a successful career. He lived comfortably, surrounded by one of the finest private gem collections in Europe. No mysterious deaths. No sudden disasters. No sign of a curse. In fact, the earliest owners of the Hope diamond experienced lives that were far less dramatic than the legends would later claim. After Henry Hope's death, however, the diamond began passing through the hands of different members of the Hope family. With each generation, family fortunes became more complicated. Inheritance disputes emerged. Financial pressures increased. And eventually, the once great Hope fortune began to decline. By the end of the 19th century, descendants of the family were forced to sell many of their treasured possessions, including the famous blue diamond. To later storytellers, these financial difficulties seemed like proof of the curse. But historians see something different. Many wealthy families of the era experienced similar declines. Changing economies, poor investments, and complicated inheritance laws ruined fortunes across Europe. The Hope family was not unique. Yet the legend continued to grow. New owners appeared. New stories followed. Each retelling made the curse darker than the last. Some newspapers claimed that everyone who possessed the diamond suffered misfortune. Others insisted that mysterious accidents followed it wherever it traveled. Few of these stories included reliable evidence. Many could not be verified at all. The most sensational tales often appeared decades after the events they supposedly described. One writer, eager to make the gemstone even more fascinating, repeated the old legend that it had been stolen from a sacred Hindu idol. Another claimed that priests had placed a curse upon anyone who removed it from India. The stories spread quickly. Readers loved them. After all, a beautiful diamond was interesting. A cursed diamond was unforgettable. By the beginning of the 20th century, the Hope diamond was no longer famous only for its rare blue color. It had become famous for something no scientist could measure: fear. People began to wonder whether the curse was real. Was every tragedy merely a coincidence? Or had the diamond truly carried misfortune across continents for centuries? The greatest test of that question was still to come. Soon, the legendary blue gem would cross the Atlantic Ocean, into the hands of one of America's wealthiest women. And it was there that the legend of the Hope diamond would become known around the world. In 1909, the Hope diamond arrived in the United States. Its reputation had already crossed the Atlantic. Collectors admired its extraordinary beauty. Newspapers preferred something far more exciting. They called it the cursed diamond. Every new owner became another opportunity to revive the legend. One of the men responsible for keeping the story alive was Pierre Cartier, the famous Parisian jeweler. Cartier understood something that few businessmen of his time appreciated. People did not simply buy jewels. They bought stories. And the Hope diamond came with the greatest story of them all. When Cartier introduced the gem to wealthy American heiress Evelyn Walsh McLean, he did not begin by talking about its color or rarity. Instead, he spoke of kings, of revolutions, of mysterious disappearances, and of a curse that had supposedly followed the diamond across 3 centuries. The story fascinated her. Unlike many others, Evelyn was not frightened by the legend. She found it irresistible. In 1911, she purchased the Hope diamond, making it one of the most celebrated jewels in America. She wore it to lavish parties, state dinners, charity events. Newspapers eagerly photographed the dazzling blue gemstone around her neck. The Hope diamond had become a celebrity in its own right. But over the years that followed, tragedy struck the McLean family. Her young son died in a car accident. Her daughter later died from a drug overdose. Her husband suffered severe mental illness and eventually passed away in a psychiatric hospital. Their once great newspaper empire also collapsed under financial pressure. To believers, the evidence seemed overwhelming. The curse had claimed another family. Yet historians urge caution. Each tragedy had its own understandable cause. Accidents, illness, personal struggles, business failures. None could be directly connected to a gemstone. Even so, the timing was impossible for newspapers to ignore. Article after article described the Hope Diamond as a bringer of misfortune. With every headline, the legend grew stronger. Soon, people remembered the tragedies more clearly than the facts. The diamond's reputation became almost as valuable as the diamond itself. After Evelyn Walsh McLean died in 1947, her magnificent jewelry collection was sold to settle the family's debts. The Hope Diamond was purchased by New York jeweler Harry Winston, one of the world's most respected gemstone dealers. Unlike previous owners, Winston never treated the diamond as a symbol of personal wealth. He believed extraordinary gems should inspire the public. Instead of locking the Hope Diamond away in a private collection, he exhibited it around the United States, allowing millions of people to admire its beauty. Then, in 1958, he made a decision that surprised the world. He donated the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Even more astonishing, he mailed the priceless gemstone through the United States Postal Service, packaged in an ordinary brown box, insured for only a fraction of its true value. The parcel arrived safely. No curse. No mysterious disaster. Only one of history's greatest treasures, beginning a completely new chapter. For the first time in centuries, the Hope Diamond no longer belonged to a king, a banker, or a millionaire. It belonged to everyone. But one final question still remained. After 300 years of stories, tragedies, and legends, was the Hope Diamond ever truly cursed? Or had the greatest mystery surrounding it existed only in the human imagination? Today, the Hope Diamond rests peacefully inside the National Museum of Natural History, part of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Every year, millions of visitors stop before its display. Some admire its remarkable beauty. Others come to see the world's most famous cursed diamond. Under carefully controlled lighting, the gemstone reveals the deep blue color that has captivated people for centuries. When exposed to ultraviolet light, it even glows with a brilliant red phosphorescence, a rare characteristic that fascinates gemologists to this day. Scientists have spent decades studying the Hope Diamond. Its unique blue color comes from tiny amounts of boron trapped within the crystal during its formation, deep beneath the Earth's surface, more than 1 billion years ago. Its remarkable glow has helped researchers better understand the formation of rare blue diamonds. To scientists, it is not an object of fear. It is an extraordinary natural wonder. But what about the curse? When historians carefully examined the famous stories, they discovered something surprising. Many of the most dramatic tales appeared long after the events they described. Several supposed victims never actually owned the diamond. Others experienced ordinary misfortunes that newspapers later connected to the gemstone. Some stories were exaggerated. Others were completely invented. The legend had grown stronger with every retelling. That does not mean the tragedies were imaginary. Many owners truly experienced heartbreak. Kings lost their kingdoms. Families suffered personal loss. Fortunes disappeared. But history is filled with similar tragedies involving people who never came anywhere near the Hope Diamond. Human beings naturally search for patterns. When several unfortunate events become linked to a single remarkable object, our minds begin to see a connection, even when none can be proven. The Hope Diamond became the perfect canvas for that belief. It was rare, beautiful, mysterious, and wrapped in centuries of incomplete history. The unknown invited imagination. And imagination created one of the greatest legends ever attached to a gemstone. Today, the Hope Diamond continues to inspire wonder, not because people fear it, but because it represents something far more fascinating. It reminds us that history is shaped not only by facts, but also by the stories people choose to believe. A single gemstone traveled from the mines of India to the palaces of France, through revolution, theft, private collections, and finally into a public museum. Along the way, it became far more than a diamond. It became a legend. Perhaps the real mystery was never whether the Hope diamond carried a curse. Perhaps the greater mystery is why human beings have always been drawn to stories that blur the line between truth and myth. And maybe that is the Hope diamond's greatest treasure. Not its color, not its size, not even its extraordinary value, but its unmatched ability to remind us that sometimes the stories we tell about history become just as enduring as history itself. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the remarkable story of the Hope Diamond. If you enjoyed exploring this forgotten chapter of history, don't forget to subscribe so we can uncover more extraordinary stories together. Until next time, take care and keep your curiosity alive.